exciting episode of Loss of Lieutenant. Today we have a little special episode for you. I am joined today by my fellow host Nick. I am Tristan. And we have a special guest. We have Dalton from Risky Rollers. How are you, my friend?
There you go. Thanks for having me on here. And it's I'm feeling good on this lovely Sunday evening.
Yes, well, today we are here to talk about the amazing event that you guys at Risky Rollers put on every year for the past 3 years, I've been hearing.
This is our third one.
This is the third
the past
one?
2 years and this one.
Excellent, called the Risky Rollers Annual, and this is be 2024. So, before we get into that, Dalton, how about you give us a little history about yourself? How did you get into wargaming?
How did I get into wargaming? Many years ago now, at a model railroad exhibition up in Pine Rivers in Brisbane.
Ooh.
There were a couple of lads there playing some Warhammer, some 40k, back in, would have been like 4th edition, I think, at the time, maybe 5th edition.
Yep.
As well as a couple of lads playing Field of Glory, an old historical war game that I've still got a bit of a soft spot for. And I was young, and I think probably not even a teenager yet, and I went over and I bothered them for a whole weekend.
Excellent.
And did that for a couple of years in a row. And from there, I sort of learned that the hobby existed at all. Ordered some overpriced Space Marines off eBay, with my parents' help, of course, because I was way too young to know what I was doing.
Excellent.
Painted them badly and had a great time.
That's what it's about, I suppose.
Yeah. I was about 2 hours away from the nearest Games Workshop, and probably just before the internet had gotten to the point where you could just find people on Facebook and find groups and stuff like that. It was sort of a pre-Facebook group era, I guess. So I, like, once or twice a year, I'd travel up to Broadbeach in the Gold Coast, a couple of hours away, and visit the Warhammer store and learn more about it. And I would read every bit of lore I get my hands on for 40k. And it was probably a few years before I even learned that other game systems were a big deal or a big thing.
Yeah, I feel like 40k definitely has the effect of drowning out everything around it. Almost even its other games, like the other game systems that GW makes, is almost drowned out by 40k.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's also a case of the whole hobby in general, as I've talked about endlessly on many podcasts now, but the whole hobby in general it's a fairly opaque, even today with all the effort people make and go to make it more transparent. It's still a fairly opaque sort of hobby, an opaque thing to be in. If you don't know how to get into it or know someone that does, it can still be quite inaccessible. And that's true even once you're in the first door, even once you're playing one sort of game. Like, finding out about others and getting further into it is still really hard. I'm still discovering games that have existed for 20 years that I've just never heard of.
Absolutely, yeah. So your first foray was kind of 40k and historical games. Have you kind of moved on to any super interesting games recently?
So I mean, I like to think I've broadened my horizons a fair bit since then. 40k was my first love, followed very quickly by Warhammer Fantasy, some Dwarfs and some Tomb Kings. And then, from there, I played a bunch of board games and things. I had a group that I played Twilight Imperium with a fair bit. It was a lot of fun. A lot of the Star Wars games, I got right into Armada and Legion when that first came out. And then, over the last few years, since I moved to Melbourne and was in a place where there's just so much access to miniature games and tabletop games, I've gotten into way more games than I should have.
It's dangerous.
So these days my main games are going to be 40k and Blood Bowl. And I also play a lot of Old World, as well as Horus Heresy. Legions Imperialis is one I'm very passionate about. Legion Imperialis. I've played Kill Team, Warcry, Underworlds, which are all fantastic. I've very recently gotten into Gaslands as well, which is an absolutely hilarious game to play. It's a lot of fun. And then Infinity, which I'm sure some of you have heard of.
I hope
is
so.
A game that, a few years ago, I got right into lore-wise, and I read through a bunch of the lore. I thought this is one of the coolest things ever. I've got a stack of books sitting on a bookshelf somewhere that's all of the Daedalus Gate lore and around. My understanding is vaguely the end of N3, and the start of N4.
Yes, I want to
Was
say
about when that was?
Daedalus Gate was the last book before N4 dropped. I want to
Yeah,
say.
I think that was the. But yeah, reading a bunch of that and the lore around Ohar and the Spiral Core, and went, that's a thing. Definitely going to get into that. Ordered loads of miniatures, and they've sat in a box in my cupboard for at least 2 years, through 2 different houses I've stayed in.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So when it's you kind of got through Infinity by the lore, which is interesting because I feel like Infinity is kind of like flipped versus 40k, where 40k all the lore is free pretty much, but the rules are super expensive. But for Infinity, all the rules are completely free, but you got to pay for the lore, and it's not actually super accessible, really. So.
Well, yes and no. I think a lot of it would started with by reading, like just reading online articles or reading like the wiki pages and stuff like that, and going, oh, here's like the broad brushstrokes. And then, but you're right. Like I had to pay for it, and I went on, I think, Facebook Marketplace and found someone selling a bunch of rule books and source books, and I think even it was actually just the Daedalus Gate, like all of the Daedalus Gate box things without the miniatures, or whichever box that was. But I do also have a cardboard box somewhere with all of the cardboard terrain that came with that. That exists somewhere as well. And yeah, I had to pay for all that. But it was definitely worth it. I bought those. I read through them. It was a lot of fun. One of the graphic novels that came out around then as well. It was a really, really interesting read.
Outrage or Betrayal?
Aftermath?
I think it was Outrage.
Okay.
I think so.
A sniper who's fighting his own clone?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah, Outrage.
Like yeah. And that was really cool. And it's like it's a kind of science fiction that I really, really appreciate, where it's sort of very, very grounded, very close to home, but just far enough away that you can hand wave away anything you need to with oh, it's science, it's from the future. It's fine.
Excellent.
And I got heavily into that, and from that never quite got around to learning how to play because
intimidating.
Time is a precious resource, and
that too. Yes, it takes a long time.
Yeah, I definitely read through the rules. So I read through the N4 rulebook at one point and went, all right, like this makes sense. So I definitely watched a couple of battle reports on YouTube and went, all right, I follow what's going on, but never translated that into actually playing the game. Therefore, have not actually properly learned how to play.
Well, you're at a good time because in 2 and/or more weeks, we will have a N5 rule set, and you could learn it with us.
Maybe.
I'm very keen for
that. Maybe sometime between now and Christmas.
Well, yes.
Maybe.
But certainly he can learn it with us.
Absolutely.
Just whatever it happens.
It's very exciting times for Infinity. We've been getting little hints and little tidbits over the days about certain things, and it's all looking very... we were kind of worried it might have been a bit of Infinity 4.5, but they're really just... They're throwing everything everywhere, so it's definitely going to be a much bigger edition change than first proposed, which is good. I love it when the meta is going to be absolutely bonkers. Infinity is kind of a game that doesn't get massive meta shakeups very often. I feel like 40k gets a data slate every 3 months or something, or every 6 months.
In the last couple of editions, you got every. I think last edition it was every 3 months you'd have a data slate and a points update.
Yeah,
which was way too fast for the casual player, and I've spent many hours talking about why I think that was an error to make it that quick of an update. This edition, the points changes are now every 6 months, but they still do little balance updates every 3 months, which is still fast, but a better pace for a casual player to keep up with, I think.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm super excited that the meta is just going to be a big blob of like I have no idea what's going on. It's super exciting.
Yeah.
Well,
with the meta in Infinity, I feel like it's less the lists and the armies as it is the ITS system and the rotation of missions, plus picking them for different tournaments makes that tournament have a different feel and meta to it.
Absolutely. And this
tournament makes me really excited. I always appreciate like looking at mission strategy when it comes to building lists for 40k and stuff like that. And I enjoy the way that different missions force different lists and matchups to play.
Yes.
So yeah, hearing that's like a central part of what makes the Infinity meta change and the way it is really cool. I'm definitely keen to experience some of that.
100%. The difference between, you know, the good players and the excellent players, always top 5, is they know their list building and they know how to run their list properly for any mission. If you talk to our other host Jordan, he can run one list for all 5 missions, and he just nails it. He just nails the list building, and he nails the whole tactical aspect of the list building. And it's, yeah, it also opens different ways of doing the missions for you. So you have multiple methods of doing something that seems very simple. And that goes across factions as well. Which is another thing that I kind of love about Infinity is people's list building is very wild sometimes. Like, you might have a favorite faction, and then I go to this person, and then they build it completely differently and do just as well. And I go, oh, maybe I'll pick up some ideas there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And you've got a wild array of factions too. Something like 49 something different playable factions or something.
It's going to be coming down a little bit, but yes.
Okay. Not much though. I think it's coming down by 6.
Only 43. Those are
yeah.
What kind of numbers are those?
What is it? It's something around 40. Yeah. But it doesn't actually feel like that much. But I guess it is. I don't know. Anyway,
it might be a little bit more at N5 once vanillas get trimmed.
Yes. All right. So sometime in the future of your wargaming history and in the past of now, you and some other folks started Risky Rollers. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the history of that?
Yeah. So look, I'll be fairly brief because it's a story that I feel like I retell every time I'm on anywhere. So we it was probably a few months before the big virus of 2019 started. Basically, someone put out a post on Facebook looking for a bunch of people to play some 40k with down in the eastern suburbs, sort of Bayside area. So there was a few faces that you'll still see around events and a few that you won't. We all got together, and there were of the original 4. You got Lawrence, Charlie, and myself are sort of the 3 that are still kicking around. And Lawrence and myself, obviously, if you've watched any of our content over Risky Rollers, you'll see that we're the 2 main hosts there, along with Carl, who's joined us and has been absolutely fantastic. But yeah, we got together and we just played games, and all it was is that we'd get together, we'd hire a bowling club hall for dirt cheap, and we'd hire a hall, we'd buy a slab of beer, and we'd spend a day playing games and drinking beer and hanging out, and that was it. And then my good mate Lockie, who was there, we got chatting about stuff and realized that we both kind of had this ambition to create content and to make battle reports and kind of do the YouTube thing and do it in such a way to grow a community around it. And we sort of looked around and realized that it wasn't really something that was happening a lot in Australia and Victoria. The only other big one, of course, Legends and Lore, who I don't know if you guys have seen any of their stuff around. Still good mates with a few other people from there. They were another Melbourne-based battle report channel.
Yep.
But yeah, we thought, oh well, that'd be something we'd be interested in doing, and so we just went, cool, we'll just do it. And we put a bunch of time and money into. We brought a producer in. We did a bunch of shoots and shot a bunch of battle reports, which you can see on their earlier stuff on the YouTube channel. And we had a great time. It was a lot of fun. And then right as that got started, we all got sent home and told to stay there for a few years. So
yeah,
that was good times. And so at that point we started the Risky Rollers podcast in its first version. It was something we talked about for a while, and it was something on the cards for the future. But we sort of rushed it through and made sure we had an audio only podcast going up at least every week to keep growing the community and keep doing that kind of stuff. By this stage, we had our own Discord for Risky Rollers, separate to Bayside Tabletop, that was growing at a good rate. We had a bunch of people in there. Played a lot of games on Tabletop Simulator.
Yep.
Would have been during this period that we started branching out and then playing other games a lot as well. Because it was like when you're sitting at home and you're playing on your computer and you're doing stuff there, it's super easy to go, hey, let's try this other game.
Yep.
And you try it on Tabletop Simulator. You get it all wrong, but you sort of get the gist of it. And then eventually you pick it back up again when you go out and play games in real life again. And that we did. You know, the lockdowns were lifted. We all got to go back out and meet up again and play board games. That was a lot of fun. And it was around that time, I think, that we sort of went, all right, well, what about events and things? We never really got to go to loads of those beforehand. The one event we did get to go to was went to an event called Geelong Heresy, which is a big Warhammer 40k event every year in Geelong. And it's very silly. It's 3,000 points.
Okay.
You're allowed to bring all your old out-of-print stuff that doesn't have rules anymore and use the old rules for them. No one takes it seriously. The whole thing is you bring a funny list or a joke list for the biggest thing you can. And you spend the whole weekend drinking and the whole weekend playing 40k, and you just have a great time.
Excellent.
And we went down to that and that was incredible. Like, what an amazing experience to get to go and do that with all of your mates. And we looked around and saw that there's obviously the guys out in Ballarat do a fantastic job if you're out that way or you're wanting to go to a great 40k event in Victoria. The boys over at RapCon 40k out in Ballarat do a phenomenal job. But there was no one really running 40k stuff in Melbourne. And we went, well, I mean, it's worked so far, let's just do it.
Yep.
And so we did. We ran a few events. I want to say we were in 3 events the first year. There was 40K's the way, which we tested the waters. We brought up all of our like nicely done up studio terrain for 40K. There was all the scenic rocks and buildings and that kind of stuff. And we set all that up and we got a massive response. We had like 16 people, which was capacity at the time.
Yep.
We had 16 people come out and they played that and had a great time. We ran a doubles event later in the year. As well as I think we did run a 2-day event that year. It was our first. Yeah, I think that would have been our first open. I think we call it the Risky Rolls Open. It was our first big flagship competitive event for 40k, and that all ran really well. And at the end of the year, we went, well, we want to run an event that's not just about us, and not just about building the event. Let's run an event that gives back a bit. And so here we have the very first iteration of the Risky Rollers Annual, a charity that Lockie and I were both behind. It's a charity called the Smith Family, who we still support to this day. And we went, well, let's do an event. Let's try and include as many systems that we can run as possible, which again wasn't many at the time.
Yeah.
And we ran an event. We had 40k. We had Horus Heresy happening. We had Kill Team. And in fact, Kill Team is coming back this year for the annual as well. We didn't have it last year. And then we had Blood Bowl, which I'd also sort of fairly recently gotten into playing in person and thought, wow, this is great fun. So it was all Games Workshop event systems.
Yep.
Just because that's sort of what we were around and what people were around were playing. And yeah, we had an absolutely fantastic time. We had a good turnout of like 40-something people for the first year across all the different systems, with Blood Bowl and 40k being the 2 biggest. Raised a bunch of money and gave that away to the Smith family, and we carried on from there. Last year we went big. We went, cool, events work well. We moved a lot of our production to live streams, and we were doing a thing where we were like live streaming games twice a week on a Tuesday and a Thursday. And we had this goal of being able to live stream our events as well. Yep. Because that was something that was going on there. And I think last year in total we ran something in the vicinity of 19 different events across 40k and Blood Bowl and Horus Heresy and Kill Team. We ran just loads of them. Nice. And that was a great experience. It was definitely too much to be doing.
Yeah.
But it happened. They all went off. We learned so much about how to run events and how to do stuff behind the scenes really well. And then again, the end of last year, we had the Risky Rollers Annual 2023, and it was the same sort of thing. We swapped out Kill Team for Age of Sigmar instead. We still ran 4 different game systems. And once again, 40k and Blood Bowl being the biggest, but again, bigger than they were the year before. And yeah, we had a load of people come down and have this great atmosphere of people that play vastly different games and different systems, just coming together and having a great time together at the end of the year. Sort of lent a bit more into the Christmassy theme of it. And yeah, it was fantastic.
So how many people did you manage to get last year?
So last year, I think for the whole event, I think we had 52, I want to say.
Okay.
It was very much, it was sort of reaching the capacity of the venue we were in, which was the Moorabbin Bowls Club.
Right.
Which are great people, great venue. And yeah, I want to say like 52 or something like that. It also probably reached capacity of what we could do catering-wise too, because the main thing was we would just do a big barbecue for lunch, and everyone who came along could have a bunch of sausages and everything else we did there. So yeah, we had something like that. I think we raised about $1,300, I think, something like that.
Very nice.
That we were able to donate to the Smith family. Yeah, so that ran last year. And then this year, at the start of the year, Lockie basically stepped back and handed off the reins to myself and Lawrence for a bunch of personal reasons. And so this year, Lawrence and I have been running a bunch of events. We cut down the number, but focused on really improving the quality of each one. So we've run, I think, 2 big teams events for 40k, 3 one entry-level event in February, the 40k is the way, once again, and 2 competitive events for 40k, a GT, 2 GTs, the Calling the Banners and the Open, which was Victoria's first 3-day event.
Oh,
that was last November.
How I want to ask how that turned out, because we've considered 3-day events for Infinity as well, but I feel like most people need to go back home to their kids. So how did that turn out for you?
Yeah, that turned out really well. We had a bunch of people come along. So we ran over 3 days. We had 3 rounds, then 2 rounds. And that ran on the Melbourne Cup sort of long weekend.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and that went really well. We had a bunch of feedback from it that was great to hear. All the good stuff is good, and we had some feedback on stuff we can improve on, which we'll be working on there. Mainly to do with the system we use for doing pairings for the first day.
Right.
But yeah, it went really well. There was definitely a little bit of drop off over the weekend. Like, you had a couple of people drop after day 1, a couple of people would drop after day 2, but there wasn't as much as I was expecting. I was kind of expecting there to be like a significant drop. We'd only get like 20 people coming back on day 3, but we still had 40 something people there. So
ooh,
that was pretty sweet. Yeah. So yeah, that was an event. It basically on all the metrics that we're using basically told us that this is an event that can run, that people want to come to, and that we are going to continue running. The date's an interesting one. The long weekend being, because it's a lot of people down here kind of already have the extra day off.
Yeah, I was going to say some people don't get the Monday off, but they only get the Tuesday. So,
absolutely. The unfortunate truth of it is there's no sort of free long weekends. That half of the year.
Yeah.
The only ones around there are Christmas, or
New Year's.
New Year's. Yeah. I think Labor Day is the one that's the nearest to it, but that's back in like July or August or something. I don't actually know when that is.
King's birthday's in July.
That might be what I'm thinking of.
And then we have something in November. Do we get not Anzac Day? No.
Remembrance Day.
We get, that's not a public holiday though, is it? No, I don't think so.
I think it is.
Is it? Oh,
I think so. It might not be, but it's also, that can fall in the middle of the week too. That can fall on a Wednesday or a Thursday.
Yeah. Most of them are in the first half of the year, which does make it slightly awkward. And
there's already a bunch of events that do run on those ones there. And the November date fits well sort of in the national circuit of when big events happen.
You have grand final in September. That's probably the other one.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah,
that's a Friday.
Yeah, so the grand final weekend we did consider. We'll continue considering it. Maybe it comes up to that weekend. The main reason we didn't is that we basically went for all of. So this year we had the incredible opportunity to head overseas to the World Team Championship as part of Team Australia. Lawrence and I were both coaching for the team. So that was an amazing experience, but that was in August. And so we'd made the decision very early in the year, as soon as we knew that that was the thing we had the chance to do, that we were not going to run anything in all of September because there was going to be way too much going on in the lead up to it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
the day of the event's fine. It's the weeks beforehand of what little work goes into it.
Yeah.
And if we're going to be overseas for a lot of that, it's not going to work.
No.
Did having it on a state holiday affect your interstate players?
Yes and no. I think having it on, it didn't negatively affect it compared to if we just had it on a regular weekend, because it's still a regular weekend for them in state.
Mm-hmm.
I think I definitely would rather it if there were a national holiday that we could have it on at that end of the year. But I think as Tristan mentioned, I think the King's birthday is the only other or the nearest proper national holiday.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, that's slightly different in some different states, I think.
Yes.
There's already an event for not as popular with 40K as it used to be, but like with a few different games out in called Terracon, which is out in just on the border of Victoria and South Australia. That already runs King's birthday weekend, and like we're not about trying to clash or compete with other events. It's not something that we're interested in doing.
Mm-hmm.
It does happen occasionally, unfortunately, because it's just the nature of there are only 52 weeks in a year, and there's a lot of games and a lot of events happening all over the place.
Yeah.
But it's something that we try and avoid. And if we know that there's a big event happening on a certain weekend, we'll try to not schedule our event for the same weekend.
Makes sense.
Yeah. That said, that was the other big bit of feedback we had, which there's not a lot we can do about, was the inverse of that. So we put all of our dates up at the start of every year. But we had the Bendigo Open was the week before our Open. And unfortunately, there was nothing we could do about it because we had our dates up right at the start of the year. And I think they announced theirs a few months later.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, cool, I'm more than happy to chat to them and make sure we're both running on dates that don't conflict. But if they're that close, then that ends up just being the way it is, and there's not much we can do about it. And by all accounts, people got to go to both, had a great time at both. So
absolutely,
better all right. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like this year we've exploded in terms of the Risky Roller Annual. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how big this year's going to be?
Yeah. So the Risky Rollers Annual this year, we're basically we realized last year was sort of probably the biggest we could get in the space that we were in. Maybe there's a little bit of room to shuffle things around, but really sort of reaching capacity there. So we knew that we had to find somewhere bigger to run it, and if we find somewhere bigger to run it, let's fill it. Let's go as big as we can, especially with the time we have in the lead up to make sure everything's prepared for it. So this year we're running it at the gaming arena up in Coburg North, which has sort of a larger space that we can go. And so we thought, well, let's fit as many things in as we can. One of the things that I've been passionate about for a few years, I obviously mentioned that I got into the lore of Infinity a couple of years ago. We've wanted to include it and include other non-Games Workshop systems and stuff and events that we do. It's just being able to find a way to do it that makes sense and that we can actually sustain doing.
Yep.
So one of the first things I went was, well, if we have the space, the two things I wanted in for sure were Infinity and Legions Imperialis, which is still a Games Workshop system, but it's one of the smaller ones. And so I sat down with people at the gaming arena and went, well, what's our capacity if we want to do the whole hall? How many people can we fit in? How can we structure the games and the tables and stuff to fit everyone in? So we've ended up coming up with this event where we have, I think, 10 different game systems with tickets available. 40K, which is going to be the biggest because it just
It's
is.
40K. Yep.
Yep. We've got Horus Heresy, or 30K, so the sort of prequel game to 40K. If you're not familiar with that, that's built off the 7th edition 40K core engine. So sort of like retro 40K.
Yep.
Then we've got Warhammer the Old World, so classic fantasy, which came back with a bang at the end of last year or early this year. I've been playing a bunch of that. It's a lot of fun, and I'm keen to see a bunch of people coming along to that. We've got Age of Sigmar Spearhead. Now, Age of Sigmar is something that doesn't see a lot of tournaments on this side of Melbourne. I know out in the west there's a big community for it, and I'm hoping to get some of them to come across for it. But it doesn't see a lot of tournaments for it. We ran that at the annual last year. It was easily our smallest one. I think we ended up with like 5 people coming along for that.
Yep.
So this year we sort of went, well, there's a new edition. People are getting excited about playing Spearhead and the smaller variant of it. So we're running Age of Sigmar Spearhead rather than full-size Age of Sigmar for this one. And then Legions Imperialis, which is the 8mm scale, so tiny marines and tiny tanks. 8mm scale Horus Heresy, which is an absolutely fantastic, great game. The models are great fun to paint, and the game is really interactive, really back and forth gameplay. So it's great fun. And then, of course, Infinity, which is where you guys come in. I had the lovely chance to help you guys out and be involved a little bit with your streaming of Burn City Brawl earlier in the year, which was a fantastic chance to meet everyone and see all the sort of things that your community get up to and the fantastic models and tables you guys put together, and the really slick event you guys run. So I reached out to Kevin and Tristan to see if they're interested in coming on board for the annual, and you guys have done a fantastic job of bringing that together. And that's all of the big, like, full-size table games we've got. We'll then run a bunch of smaller ones. So I've mentioned before, I run a lot of Blood Bowl events throughout the year. I actually run 4. They're seasonal cups. They're the Risky Rollers, Autumn, Winter, Spring, and Summer Cup. And so the Summer Cup is always the one at the annual. It's our 4th one of the year. So we're running that again. We've got the Risky Rollers Summer Cup. We've then got Kill Team making its return. We've got Warhammer Underworld for the first time, which is more a board game, like a miniature and card board game,
right,
that Games Workshop put out. It's actually really, really good. It's just very hard to find players for, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay.
But the game itself is really well designed. It's just started a new edition that plays really, really smoothly and makes it more accessible than it's been before. So hopefully that goes well. And then we're also running some Magic the Gathering at the event as well. So some card games. Again, kind of still within the wheelhouse of things that I do at work. So I'm kind of used to it and I can handle it fairly easily.
Yep.
But wanting to expand beyond just like Games Workshop games. Sort of the original idea for the annual was to expand beyond 40K and get some more games involved. And that idea is just going to continue to expand. And I want to get more people from across the tabletop hobby space as a whole come together, meet each other, play in the same space, realize, we're all playing. Functionally, we're all playing toy soldiers. We can come together. We can do that. We can do it for a great cause.
Yep.
And yeah, that's the annual.
Great. It sounds like what we have capacity for 140 odds, I think is what's written.
Yeah. So I think it's up to about 140 if we get there. I don't know how close to that we'll get, but each game has like an allocated number of tickets available for it.
Yep.
That sort of every week, every 2 weeks, I sit on the back end and look at it and go, all right, well, this one's sold out or about to sell out, so I'm going to add some more tickets to there, and this one's not selling well, so take a couple of tickets off and just allocate space around and make sure that we can try and get the most people in as we can.
Yep, absolutely. Well, with that, we'll just quickly, guys, go through the information for the Infinity part of the Risky Rollers Annual. So, as Dalton said, it's on the 14th of December at the Gaming Arena in North Coburg. Tickets are $50 and include a catered lunch. All profits go towards the Smith family, which helps young Australians overcome educational inequality caused by poverty. If you guys want to read into the player packs for any of the games or anything like that, it's all on the Facebook events, and you can purchase tickets on the Risky Rollers website.
Riskyrollers.com.au.
Excellent. Nick, do you want to take us through the amazing custom missions we have picked to run at this event?
Yes. So, because this was supposed to be, I think at this rate, our second N5 event.
The second first N5 event? Yep.
Yes. Now the final-ish farewell to N4. We will be doing a custom mission tournament for this one. The 3 missions we picked were Biosample, which is where you flip switches, and then they start to leak biotech 4 as you flip them. That is basically the same as was in the custom mission packet a month or 2 ago. A Song of Ice and Firefights, which is like highly classified, but it uses the tactical objectives deck.
Yeah.
That one as well is basically the same as the one in the custom mission packet. And finally, we have Mega Turret.
Mega Turret.
Which is looting and sabotage, but if you really, really, really beefed up the security system. This one we have made some changes to, especially after the discussion we had. You can see episode 125 if you'd like to see that, where the Mega Turret now counts as heavy infantry for hacking, but it can be affected by fairy dust. And after our discussion, I added immunity to the targeted state just because that seemed like a
cheesy way to never shoot your Mega Turret.
Yes, just a generally negative experience because you wouldn't engage with the mission if you did that.
Yeah.
The updates for that are in the player packet, as Tristan mentioned, available linked through our Facebook event page, and I believe there's a link to those on both the Victorian and Lost Lieutenant Discords.
Yeah, it'll also be in the description of this episode of whatever platform you're listening to it on. Also, a lovely Infinity local has decided to print us custom Mega Turrets as a door prize. So everyone who attends will get their own big-ass S7 turret, which will be a great memento for that.
From what I've seen so far, they look great.
They look amazing. Just quick asterisk. I believe Dalton tickets are available to the 12th of December.
Until the 13th, the day before. The 13th? So, yeah. So the Friday night, I'll basically hit a button that says, nope, these aren't available anymore. Which is also, I think, I don't know how you guys are running it for that, but it's also when I've said lists are due for all 40k and Games Workshop events. I know you guys handle lists a little bit differently, but it's, as far as I'm concerned, for the 40k side of things and everything there, it's a fairly casual event. So, people aren't going to have a week to analyze everyone else's lists ahead of time. So it's all, you can buy tickets right up to the day before, and you can submit your lists right up to then as well.
Yep, excellent. Infinity is very much a game where people don't write their lists till the night before because they're lazy. Yep. There was one thing. So if N5 does get a release date, and the release date is if it comes out Wednesday night or Thursday morning, we will be using N5 Army. If it comes out, let's say, the Friday at 5 p.m., just please save your lists or print them, because otherwise half the people are going to rock up with N4 lists, the other half are going to rock up with N5 lists, or they don't have their list because it got deleted because they didn't print it, because it's not in the app anymore. The app might be broken, 12 hours after it releases. So if you are attending, write your lists, whatever. Just make sure to save a copy of them in case N5 decides to drop. We haven't got a release date yet. They probably will give us a release date at some point, I hope. But
I assume they will also give us a release date a few days notice on the release.
I hope more than a few days,
however,
to be honest.
It could be a surprise. So yes, please, if you're attending, print your lists maybe Thursday night, just in case. And that way, even if you do make last-minute changes, you have something to back up if you need.
Yes, because we don't want it to swap and then you forget what your model does.
Yes.
Or, we'll see how it goes. It's gonna be an event. All right, Dalton. We have heard that there are some lovely painting competitions being held at Risky Rolls Annual. Would you like to tell us a little bit about those?
Yes, there are indeed. This is something we've run each year for it, and it's an aspect of it that I've never really focused on. And this year, I still haven't had the chance to really put loads of effort into ahead of time. But it's something that I will keep running, and hopefully next year, it's one of my focuses is going to be pushing this as part of the event. But yeah, so there are painting competitions. There are, I believe, 2 categories that you can enter, basically defined by the size of the model. Now, the way that we've defined that is via base size, or the base that it comes with. You don't have to submit a model on that base size, but it needs to be in the appropriate category for the base as it came on. It doesn't have to be a Games Workshop model. It can be a Corvus Belli miniature. It can be a privateer press miniature. It can be a 3D printed bust if you wanted to, as long as it fits in that appropriate size category. If you've got a model that doesn't have a base, to 3D print or something, don't be ridiculous about it. Look at it, go, yeah, it's about that size. It'll go there. And basically the way it'll work is this. You can bring in a miniature. I don't recommend it's a miniature you want to play with because we need to be able to look at them to judge them.
Yep.
You can bring in a miniature, and anyone who's attending or even not attending the event that's just around for the day, you're welcome to come in and just enter this. I believe it's set up to be a $5 donation directly to the Smith family.
Yep.
And we've got a setup for that as well. But a $5 donation, and you can enter your miniature into the painting competition, into the category that is relevant, which I believe is 50mm bases and smaller, and then anything larger than that.
All right.
So we're talking like Tag Dreadnought being the cutoff?
Tag Dreadnought being the...
Like,
yes,
would a Dreadnought be the small or the large?
A Dreadnought comes on a 90mm base these days, so they'll be the large, because they're yay big.
Oh, okay. They're larger than I remember. Okay.
Yes, they got bigger.
Does the large go all the way up to Titan?
Sorry?
Does the large go all the way up to Titan?
It would, yeah. If someone look, if you cruise in with the Titan model, we'll judge it on its painting merits, and not on the fact that it's just a big ass model.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean, look, I like that we're not painting experts. It's not going to be the tightest, most prestigious painting competition in the world.
Yeah.
That's not how it runs. But I like to think that we can look at a model and have a pretty good judge of it, and it'll be myself, the other TOs there, and you guys as well will be coming through and judging all of the painting entries for it. Excellent.
That kind of works well for Infinity, because kind of our big models are 55mm bases, and then anything smaller.
So for example, I'm imagining the picture I've got in my head is of a Shazvasti Tag, like a big red and black model. It's yay big. And they're on like it's like 55mm base, something like that.
Okay, so I wish I had one here. So we have small tags and big tags. Yep. So the small tags are on 40mm bases. They might be as tall as some of the other ones, but you have small tags. Yep. And then you've got big tags that are on 55mm bases.
Gotcha. Right. Yeah. So your small tags are in your small category, along with infantry miniatures and characters.
Yeah. So that's the Shazvasti tag there.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Whereas, so those would be small in a smaller category.
That would be a large tag.
Slightly bigger.
Models. Yeah. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. And then things like your
and then of course there's Maggie.
And then Maggie,
like the Haka Slam, like think tank looking model would be in the large category and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the painting competition is something that we run every year. Historically, entry has been a part of your ticket price, and you can see just there. Those are our entries from last year that we one you have on screen now.
Yep.
The small and the large miniature on the left and right, respectively. Historically, entries have been part of ticket price, but I think this year we looked at it and we wanted to go, well, let's make it so you can enter with just this without having to come to the event if people wanted to. Yeah. So that we have a few people who do want to do that, and previously we've kind of had to like hand wave it or like put it through an entry from someone else, something like that, which we don't like doing. And we also, well, let's have it connect directly to the charity. There's nothing Like, we don't take anything from it. The prizes for it we just put up, and then it just goes directly into the charity. If you're at the event and you're like, oh, you know, I'd love to do something that's just giving straight to the charity. That's not not coming through us or not paying part of the event or anything like that. The painting competition is a great way to do that, and you can just give back straight there. Yeah.
Excellent.
Is it limited? Are there limits on the number of models you could enter, or is it just how many times you want to donate?
I don't see a reason to limit it. How many times you want to donate? It's not a random selection, so you can enter 500 models. But if they're all not painted as well as one guy's model over there, you're not winning a painting competition.
Very fair. All right, guys. Infinity is definitely known for some delicious models. So
Yeah.
make sure to not just bring your army, but bring your favorite model as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see a bunch more models than just like the newest Warhammer models being painted up to put over there.
Yeah, we've definitely. So last year we had Arc, and we were that was Infinity's first foray into Arc as well, which is very much a hobby focused event.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we had about 20 Infinity players there, and everyone who hadn't been to Arc before just had their minds blown through all these amazing dioramas with smoke machines and LEDs everywhere. And we're saying, holy fuck, the diorama is probably more than the fucking army. And we're sitting here going, we've got a couple dudes that have like a cool MDF thing with some dirt on it. Like, yeah, that's our diorama. So we were kind of blown away. And I think for next year, I think a lot of people are really going to get into the whole, make a whole thing for it, which is great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. No, there's so much more to the hobby than just playing or like just painting the models as well. I love getting to see people really explore that and display a bunch of cool stuff there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it sounds like. Go on.
Oh, I was just going to mention, you can see up on screen there was the picture of from last year, and you can see the hall that we were in, very much at capacity. But that was the Moorabbin Bowls Club. It was where everything started, and sort of where we're coming from with this one.
Excellent. Are you guys also going to be streaming this event as well?
We won't be, actually. So we're not going to be live streaming the annual for logistical reasons more than anything else.
I completely understand.
we actually have a really good setup at the gaming arena. We've got it down to like, I think we can set up our entire streaming kit, including movable cameras and things, in like an hour and a half now.
Yep.
So we streamed the 3 big Team Australia fundraisers, the Oceanic Championships, our GT, and then something else as well. So at least, and of course the Australian New Zealand Team Championships last year. So 6 events at the venue. So we've got that down.
Yep.
But with this many different tournaments happening at the event, we need all hands on deck, like just going around doing stuff there. And then the other big bit was a bit of a selfish one, which is just that we kind of went, look, we need a bit of a break from the night before being a massive setup night.
Yes.
Like, we'll set up, we'll make sure everything's ready to go, and then we'll go home and get a decent amount of sleep the night before.
On top of running most of the events yourself, or most of the games yourself, you're also wrangling a bunch of TOs to run the other games. So I can see why you would need that extra layer of admin, and streaming is going to be
nightmare.
Quite the commitment on top of that.
Oh. It was rough for us to run an event streamed, because we had we had 2 TOs streaming at any one time, and then you had a TO dealing with all the logistical problems, and then you have, because Infinity is a really complicated game, you had to have a TO, at least one TO, going and answering rules questions, because we've got 25 games of Infinity going on. Sometimes the really minute things make a massive difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can imagine it's just going to be an absolute nightmare at the annual. With 10 systems.
Look, we've got a great bunch of guys at Risky Rollers, and my partner with it, Lawrence, he and Carl do most of the streaming actually at an event, so I don't have to be there for that. I can go around and TO and do a bunch of things there, but we're always bringing on like additional help and that kind of stuff. So there's usually 2 or 3 of us on the floor at a given time with people there streaming. So for the annual, with that many different games going on, even with like help from fantastic TOs like yourself, being there for a bunch of the games, there's still going to be questions that come up. I'm still going to be needed to be jumping between 5 different rules questions for different games at different points of the day.
Yeah,
So it was
absolutely.
just a case of let's make sure Lawrence is freed up as well. Let's not have the extra stress and the hassle of needing to choose who goes on the stream and what does that, and dealing with table numbers swapping around, technical problems and all that kind of stuff that inevitably occurs throughout a weekend or throughout a day in this case.
Yeah, I feel like I also read somewhere in the player pack that there's raffles and or door prizes.
So we'll be running raffles for the day as well. Same sort of thing. We basically we usually find a bunch of stuff that we end up having around, and we donate that, and we go and talk to sponsors and see if they donate anything for there, and then we just raffle it off in the day. So we go around during the day. We sell raffle tickets. There's little paper things, pull them out of a hat. It's not complex, it's not rocket science. In the same way as the painting competition, they're not something that we take to pay for part of the event or anything like that. It's every raffle ticket sold is just donated stuff, so it's directly straight to the Smith family.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I feel like there was one more thing. So we do have a catered lunch, I believe, from the generator.
Absolutely, yeah. So one of my favorite bits of getting to go up to the gaming arena and playing events there is actually going to the cafe down the road. The Generator Cafe is an absolutely lovely bunch of people that run it down there. They do fantastic food and fantastic coffee. And yeah, so I've reached out to them, and they'll be essentially catering the lunch for us. It'll be a little bit staggered across the big table and the small table games to make sure that everyone can have time to eat and then time to still play. But yeah, so your ticket price includes lunch for the day provided by the local cafe there.
Excellent. Is there any sponsors you'd like to shout out that are with your event?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main sponsor of all our events is General Games, which they're a Melbourne-based gaming company, game store company. It is not that late, but it feels later. It is a Melbourne-based game store company. We've got 4 stores across Melbourne. The oldest one down in Frankston used to be Games by the Beach. Then one in Malvern, one in Chermside Park Shopping Centre, up in Chermside Park, and a brand new one, which is retail only, down in Parkmore Shopping Centre in Keysborough. So they're the main sponsors of all our events and provide most of the pricing and prize support for it. So do head on out and check all of those out. You can also check out our channel sponsors, minutescenery.com and Proxy Wars, who a lot of the stuff that we raffle or give away at events were provided by Baron of Dice, who manufacture all of our dice. Dice Arcade up in Sydney. So if you're not in Melbourne and you want some high quality gaming stuff, you can head up to Dice Arcade in Sydney, who also run a bunch and facilitate a bunch of amazing Warhammer 40k and other events up there as well. So do go check all of those out. I believe that hits up everyone for that. But yeah.
Yep. Excellent. All right. I recognize a couple of the people in these pictures. I've seen them play Infinity before.
Yeah. You've got B-Dubs there, good man. And I imagine a couple of people that probably play as well.
Excellent. So I think we're seeing the winners potentially, or just the pictures of the entries.
These are just the pictures of them. Although the winner of the small one last year was the white scar in the back right there.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So that's from the small miniatures there.
All right, Dalton. Very excited to be a part of this. It's great to have an event that raises money for charity, and especially a charity that does really good work. And especially with Infinity, I'm not sure about 40k, but 90% of our events are fairly competitive. So it's nice to have an event that's kind of a bit more chill, don't focus on, absolute destruction of your opponent, but make sure they have a fun time, make sure everyone's having a really good time and just have fun with it. And also having an event kind of right before Christmas as well, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it's always a nice event at the end of the year, and getting to do it and give back to charity with it's fantastic. And having it be less intense, less competitive, which we've found we usually achieve fairly well by just fiddling with rules packs and things for 40k at least. We don't often comp lists or put penalties and restrictions on what people can play, because at that point it feels more like you're just kind of going, well, you can come along, but don't be too good at list building. Don't be too good at the game.
Yep.
But it's a great way to have an atmosphere that builds people to come together, play this for something that's bigger than just I'm going to win this event or I'm going to do well here. And just the whole atmosphere of the event is always lovely. It's my favorite event to run. It's my favorite event to be at. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. I couldn't be more excited to have you guys on board and get to see a bunch of Infinity being played as well.
I can't wait to poach all the 40k players. It's going to be great.
You got to drag them down there, right? As soon as they finish the games, drag them down. Get a demo table set up. Get it going.
The selling point is you can buy a whole army for a box of Space Marines.
Yeah, that you can. Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add, Nick?
I think that's about it. Yeah, looking forward to this. Been crunching through list generation and trying to figure out how to deal with Mega Turret.
Yeah, guys, we had a lot of discussion on Mega Turret, so I get the feeling that's going to be the popular one. If you're interested in coming, 14th December, $50, Gaming Arena. You guys know where it is, obviously, because we had BCB. Please attend. There are tickets available. Yeah, excellent. Dalton, thanks so much for coming. Thanks for telling us about the annual. Hopefully we get a bunch more Infinity players involved, which will be really good.
Yeah, it'd be great to have you guys down. And if the event for Infinity does fill up, I can add more spots for it. So that's always something we have capacity to do. The faster you guys buy tickets and sign up, the bigger your event's going to be.
That's it, guys. So get on it. All right. Thanks so much for coming, Dalton. I've been Tristan.
I've been Nick.
Good night.